this video will be about my September TBR, which means the books that I want to read in September. Hopefully, I'll be able to get through it. I'm usually not a person who really has a diligent like TBR and sticks to it because I have a lot of books that the books I read are either borrowed from my school library or I get them from my friends, and very rarely do I read books that I actually own. Otherwise, I read like ebooks or audiobooks. And also, forgive me if my hair is like it's wet right now, so that's why it looks bad. Anyways, yes, so I have a list of books, and also I will talk about, firstly, I'll talk about my August wrap up. Yes. Okay, so the books that I read in August were, first of all, the first book that I read was actually a book that I started somewhat in July, and throughout like May, June, July, I read only a few books. In May, I read two, and June and July each, I only read one book. And you can't really blame me because I have school, and I'm in high school, so I have a lot to get done, especially you know how school is in Asia, so I have a lot to get done. So that was the reason. And also, forgive me if this is very loud, but yeah. Anyway, so the first book that I read was from my school library, and it was Insurgent by Veronica Roth. And I read this because my friend her name is Shiva, and she's a huge fan of the Divergent trilogy, and she's always been pestering me to read it because I was at the library last year when I was in 8th grade. I was at the library and I was like, I really need a book to read. Do you have any recommendations? And actually, I think it was a friend that asked her, and she recommended Divergent. And I basically borrowed the Divergent first book in like December. I could not complete it, and by like December, from like September to like November, I had read like 7 books each month, 7 or 6, because I got back into reading from like after lockdown. That was when I got back into reading because I was really into reading as a kid. But yeah, that's just my backstory. But yeah, she recommended Divergent. I was really, what do you say, excited to read it, but sadly I took a long time to finish it. I took the whole of December, then I gave it back. I obviously, you can ask for an extension, but I just didn't want to. I didn't think I would ever finish it, and throughout January and February I barely read. And in March I finished Divergent. The beginning of March I read it again. I finished Divergent, and it started I started reading again. My reader's block was cured. And I waited a long time to get my hands on Insurgent because it has only one copy at my school library, so it's kind of hard to find. So I finally got it, and I immediately borrowed it that day, started reading it, and it took me 2 weeks to finish. The first week I asked for an extension. The librarian said okay, and yeah, so I gave it back a week later. It took me 2 weeks to read it, so by the beginning of August it was done because I borrowed it at the tail end of July. And then the next book I read was Allegiant by Veronica Roth. So that wrapped up my Divergent trilogy. I finished it. To be honest, I feel like Insurgent is a 5-star read. I know a lot of people shit on this series, but like it's not that bad for me. But I feel like Allegiant was the ending was pretty nice. I know it's unexpected, but I kind of expected it. But the ending was pretty nice. But I feel like the main characters were like Tris and Four, who like this whole story is told from their perspective, and they made a lot of nonsense decisions. They had a lot of I don't know, it just didn't make any sense to me, the things they did and said. So it was kind of weird for me to read that. But all in all, I would say it gets probably an almost 4 stars, I think. But the whole series is pretty good if we ignore that last book and the nonsense parts of the last book, I would say. But yeah, it's a pretty good YA series. I think it's good for if that's what you're looking for YA with a lot of adventure, some romance. I would say it's a pretty good book. Yeah, some romance, I think. It's mainly like adventure, sci-fi, ski. How do you say it? I don't know how you say it, but science fiction. And yeah, so let's move on to the next book I read. that month. And also Allegiant is also from the school library. Immediately after I finished Insurgent, the day I returned it, I saw Allegiant, immediately started reading, and I finished it in 2 weeks as well. So that's the thing, because one of the Thursday is the day we have library, and that Thursday was a holiday, so I gave it back on the next Thursday, which is pretty good. And also, I want to say the next book I read that month was I Own It. So I'm going to show it to you guys right now. Right, so it was The Valkyries by Paulo Coelho. And this thing is actually pretty good. I've read The Alchemist. I won't say that this is as good as The Alchemist, right? The Alchemist, because I don't know why. This is really much more about spirituality. If you don't know what it's about, basically it's about like Paulo Coelho's kind of, I think it's like an autobiography type thing. It's not an autobiography. I mean, like it's a memoir, but it's told from third perspective. But basically, Paulo Coelho and his wife are like the main characters here. It has a lot about like spirituality, which I am not like that into. So maybe that's why it wasn't that interesting. It was very easy to read. I could read like a lot. You know, I didn't read this very often because if I pick it up, I keep reading because this book does not have chapters, okay? And I usually read books that I own. I read it like one chapter per day. That's how I usually read them. If I have a book from the library or from a friend that I have to give back, obviously I'll be reading it more. But if I manage to like finish it, then I just go for the books that I own and I read them like one chapter a day. And this one does not have chapters, so I don't know how to control myself. I just like keep on reading. And I finished I was only like over halfway through this book, and then one day I picked it up and I finished it, which was 29, 28, I don't know, but it was something like that, and I finished reading that book. I would probably say that this is not as good as The Alchemist, but it's a pretty good book. It's a pretty easy read. If you're looking for things like a lot of spirituality, I would definitely recommend this one. Yeah, and the Valkyries are basically like Amazonian women on dirt bikes on the desert. Yeah, this guy's in the desert and he's trying to like see his guardian angel. And the Valkyries are basically a group of women who help him with it, like warrior women who help him with it. That's it. That's the book. And also, the next book that I read was Girls Out Late by Jacqueline Wilson. I know that I'm getting really old for Jacqueline Wilson. I'm getting too old for her, but I will never stop reading her books. Okay, the Girls series by Jacqueline Wilson is actually a book for teenagers, a series for teenagers, because usually she writes for like tween or preteen kids, like 10 to 13 years old. I am now just 14. I'm not that old, but I still think sometimes it's like a guilty pleasure, because even though Jacqueline Wilson is a really good writer, I would say that most people would judge me for reading her books because they would just take a look at the cover and they'd be like, are you reading this seriously? So yeah, I know we should not listen to the haters, but I read Girls Out Late. I read it as an audiobook. It's free on YouTube, okay? Oh, this background is disgusting. It's actually just my bed, okay? Like, never mind. It's full of pillows and stuff, but yeah. So that's what happened basically. And yeah. So I listened to that audiobook. I've been listening to it for a while now, and I thought I would finish it this month. So I didn't have much to do, and the same day I finished The Valkyries, I just sat down. I was like, you know what? Let's do this. And I just listened to like 2 or 3 hours of this. I sped it up, so it was only 2 or 3 hours. The rest of that book, I listened to it like right then. I didn't have anything to do, so I just listened to it. And currently I'm on my autumn vacation, which is the equivalent of a spring break, hopefully, I think. So that was the other book that I read. I don't think the girl series are particularly well written, and it has a lot of nonsense in it. Like, if you are past the target audience and you're reading it, you'll be like, what is this? What is this? This does not make sense. How can this happen? So yeah, that's about it. And but yeah, it's very girly. I feel like I do not look, maybe I do in this video, but I don't usually look like a person who enjoys like girly stuff. I don't do any of the like, usually when you read chick lit, I don't do any of the things that they do, but I love reading about it. Okay? I think that has happened to me since I watched Mean Girls. But yeah, I love tomboyish and girly stuff equally, so. The next book that I read was Hens by Rafaella Barker. Is it in focus? Did you see it? Yeah. This is actually from my library, but I did not borrow it. It was actually borrowed by my friend Tessa. And yeah, I will mention her again for the TBR, but Tessa is the one who gave this to me, and she basically she borrowed it from the library, but she was never gonna read it, and she was never gonna return it. She's so chill about it, okay? Like she doesn't even care. She's like, the library, you just have to give it before school closes. You just have to give it anytime. Like, bro, she literally has no chill. But I asked her to give this to me if she's not gonna read it anyways. This actually has no plot. It's a diary of a single mom, and she has like 3 kids, and obviously she's divorced. She has 3 kids. She's maybe in her 30s, I think. I think it's alluded that she's in her 30s, and it's just a diary. It's about her ups and lows. It's about her regrets, and she adds to the list of her regrets daily. And I don't think it has romance in it. I wouldn't really call it romance, but you get the deal, right? So that's about the book, and I think it's funny. It's like, because I went to Luna. Okay, it's this really beautiful place with lots of hill stations, and I stayed there for a night. And the drive there, because me and my whole extended family went, and the trip was very long. It took like 7-8 hours to reach there and back. So I did not have anything to do. So I read a lot, and I did not read the Valkyries because, yeah, I knew I'd be able to finish it very quickly, but I wanted to finish this in August, right? So I read it a lot because it's very easy to read. It's very like funny, and it doesn't really have a plot. So it's not kind of those books that you just like set a timer and you're like, okay, this is time for my daily read. No, you just pick it up when you're bored, when you have nothing to do, and you can read it easily, and that's it. Oh, my hands actually look like lizard hands in here. Wow. Okay, that's my August wrap up. I only read 5 books this month. That is a lot compared to a lot of like my friends, even the ones who read a lot. So you cannot judge me, okay? And now for the wrap up, yes. For the TV, bro. I realized way too late that this lighting is disgusting, but I have no other options, so I'm just gonna continue. And yeah, so as for my TBR, right? Let's start this off with the books that I really wanted to read in August, but I could not get through it. The first book would be The Day I Stopped Drinking Milk: Life Stories from Here and There by Sudha Murty. Also, not a book that I own. This was given to me by my friend Arya, who her mom is actually a librarian, not at my school, but at the school that she used to study in. So she is the library teacher of that school, and yeah, so she, she got this for her daughter, and Arya read this, and she was like, you know what, you can have it for the holidays. I originally expected her to finish this during the autumn vacation, and then she would give it to me afterward. But she finished it very quickly, and she read it a lot in class. She's one of those people who like doesn't usually read, but if she gets a book she really likes, like she'll read it in like 1 day or 2 days. Okay, she's a slow reader, but she'll read it in 1 week. Let's say that. So I actually am very much through this book right now. I actually plan to read it on the last day of August, okay? And then at night, I put it off till night, and then I was in bed, and I opened the book, and I was really sleepy. The book didn't make me sleepy, but I was already sleepy, and I could not finish it. And that was very frustrating. So now it has to go to the September TBR, I guess. And yeah, this book, I've actually read this. I have like only it's actually a collection of stories, so I have like 3 more stories to read, and that's all. And also, I only have like 30 more pages. I have barely 30 pages to read. So this is finishing today or tomorrow. I don't care what anyone says. And I also have to give this back to Adia. Actually, my school reopens on 4th. I'm currently recording this on the, wait, 2nd. Right, 2nd. So I'll give that back to her on 4th because it's not mine. It's a library book. It's not hers either. So I have to give it back. And yeah, the next book that I want to read in September is actually The God of Small Things by Lily Roy. It looks gorgeous, right? And this is also not mine. It's actually my friend Shiva's, and she read a little bit of this, but she didn't really get through it. I don't think it engrossed her because she usually finishes books within a week. Actually, within a couple of days. She's a very fast reader. You know what I mean? So the books that I mean, yeah, the books that she likes, she finishes very fast. And so this one, actually, I did not plan to finish in August at all, but I did start reading it in August, just like 2 chapters. And now currently I am halfway through the book, which is 170 pages in. I'm actually liking this part a lot. This is a very miserable book, by the way. If you want to read it, it's very miserable. And it has a lot of parts which are disgusting. So far, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but it has a lot of parts that are disgusting. Do not read this book if you're eating. Do not read this book if you have a weak heart or a weak stomach. Do not read it. Yeah, you can't visualize some scenes in this. That's all. It does not have gore. It has things that are worse than gore. So I'm just gonna leave it at that, but I'm still gonna read it. It's very interesting. It's written in a pretty good way, but it's just disgusting sometimes. So I have to take a break. So I know this one of those books that's not like a beach read. It has to be, you have to take your time with it. That's what I thought. I'm actually reading this kind of fast compared to other books which I take my time with. But yeah, I'm glad she gave this to me. It's kind of a classic book here in India. It's actually kind of very well respected. So and I plan to give this back on Monday or Tuesday because I will be reading a lot. I will. I have been, so I will be reading a lot. And the next book that I want to get done this month is actually Little Women by Louisa Alcott. It is a classic. Y'all love it. We love it. I know what it's about. It's actually about two, no, not two. That is The God of Small Things. Little Women is actually about 4 sisters, yes, and they are all um, sisters, and their dad is basically away fighting a war, I think, and they're just sticking together. It's about sisterhood, and Tessa loves this book. I'm gonna borrow it from her on Monday, and I'll finish it. Anyways, okay. So the rest of what I was gonna say. Yeah, so I'm gonna borrow it and I will probably finish it in a couple of weeks because I have a lot of books that I want to read in September. I usually don't make TBRs as I already said, so I don't hope to finish hope to finish it all. But yeah, this is just kind of yeah. And then there's the Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown, right? It's a mystery. I've actually read about like 7 chapters of it and I left it there. It's actually my uncle's or somebody's, I don't know exactly, but it's actually with Avantika right now, who is another friend of mine, and she borrowed it because she really wanted it. She's not like a big reader, but she has a couple of books she really wants to read. So she borrowed this from me before the vacation had started, just before it had started. And I don't know how she's doing with it. We haven't talked for a long while now, but yeah. So after she finishes it, I have no plans to finish it in September, by the way, but I do want to read a good portion of it in September so I can finish it possibly in October or November. I don't really want to rush read this. I just don't want to. I want to take my time with it. Again, this is a book that you truly have to take your time with. So it is actually really short chapters, so I thought I might divide it into like 1 or 2 chapters a day. That would be pretty good. So it would only be like 10 pages a day. Simple. And anyways, so it will take probably like 2 months for me to read, but I just want to finish a little bit, like more than halfway through it. I don't want to finish it in September this month. Yeah. Okay. And the next book that I want to talk about is it's basically Billy Summers by Stephen King. Now, I do not know about this. I do not know about this book. I think it's a thriller. I'm not sure. It could be, it might not be. It's actually with my friend Nandana. I really need to stop borrowing books. I need to start reading my own books. I know. Stop telling me that. But will I ever get around to doing that? No. Why does my hair look so long? Oh, it reaches my hips. It's usually not this long. I washed it, so whatever. So back to the topic. Billy Summers I know nothing about, but Nandana has read it. She pretty much likes it. I think she would. I've borrowed books from her before, so I'm gonna borrow it and I'll return it to her. And also, this is another book that I'm not certain if I will finish this month or not, but I'm just gonna try. And then finally, we have. Oh my god, I forgot this. Yeah, A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. This is a book I own, but I'm currently at my dad's house, so I can't show it to you guys. But this is a book that I own. This is the book that I own that I plan to finish this month. After this month, I feel like I will start to read all the books that I own, and not many books from my friends and possibly from my library. I would still keep reading, but usually I will at least try to stick to the books that I own because I have like 30 unread books at home right now, which books will get added to it as I buy them. So, yeah. So I plan to just read the books I own, and yeah, so I only plan to read the books that I own mainly. So September will be the last month that you see a lot of books that my friends own, and yeah, that's it. So the other book that, yeah, Thousand Twelve Suns, I read Andamans Echoed by Khaled Hosseini, but I've heard that The Kite Runner and A Thousand Splendid Suns, which are his other works. By the way, I own all three of these books, but I've only read Andamans Echoed, and The Kite Runner will probably follow A Thousand Splendid Suns very soon, with a little bit of a gap. But I don't think I can handle two Khaled Hosseini books at back to back, because his writing is brutal, okay? But I like Andaman Secor. I've heard that the other books are written in a very different way, so I really want to read them. But yeah, so so I Andaman Secor was one of the few books that I read in the lockdown time because I was not really reading that much at that time. But it's one of the few books that actually made an impact. I think that I still remember. So that's so that's the book that I want to read that I own. And there's also another book I would like to read, which is wait, Girl Online by Zoe Shug. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. She basically, okay, this is a book that is part of a trilogy, and I found all the whole trilogy on YouTube. I always read audiobooks and ebooks for free. Literally, I listen to audiobooks and I read ebooks for free. I'm cheap like that. And Real Online, actually, my mom saw this at some store, so that's how I was introduced to it, and I really want to read it. I think there's another one of those like girly books, that will probably, I don't know, maybe it will interest me. I'm not sure what it's about. I don't know anything about it, but that's it. And is there any other book that I want to read? Don't think so. I think that's all. So I do maybe want to check. Nah, I don't. I'm not gonna read that. So this is basically my TBR for the month. Yeah. Also, sometime this month, if I have some free time, I might read two, because I'm doing my studies pretty well right now. So I might read a library book, but I will only be borrowing one library book this whole month because I don't want to read too much. Like, too much books that are not my own. Because if I don't finish a few of the books right now, this month, they will get passed on to October, and then it'll be an endless cycle. So I want to read either Sidney Sheldon's If Tomorrow Comes. It's basically a crossover of like mystery or like thriller and romance, because it has both of them. Sidney Sheldon writes either romance novels or mysteries, and this one is a crossover. I think it's one of his most popular works as well. And my dad basically got me a Sidney Sheldon book. I might do a bookshelf tour soon. I might not. That depends. But I really, really, want to read Sidney Sheldon's books because my dad introduced me to them, and he said, start it, start reading his books. So I might read if tomorrow comes because I read a few chapters, I think a few pages of it actually. Maybe one or two chapters, I'm not sure, but it was pretty good for me so far, and I might read it. Or it's either that or the Dragonfly Pool by Ibbotson. I read a book by Ibbotson before, which was The Journey to the River Sea. It was set in the Amazon rainforest. It was a pretty good book. It was like historical fiction. I think this one is also historical fiction. It's like historical fiction and also kind of middle grade or YA. I don't know how to categorize it, but I think it's suitable for both. So that's kind of what I would say about the Dragonfly Pool. I don't know. I think it's set in a boarding school. I don't know much more about it. I was watching a book haul and I saw this book being recommended, and I know she has this book because I know when I borrowed Journey to the River Sea, this book was directly under it, and I chose Journey to the River Sea only because it was the one on top. That's how I kind of decided. So I'd completely forgotten about this, but I will be possibly reading it. So I will wait until there's only one of the either two books. There's only one of the two books. At the library. If there's both of the books, then I won't be selecting it. But if there's only one and the other is borrowed or I can't find it, then I will borrow the one that is there. That's it. So for TBR, I don't usually diligently follow a TBR, and I only hope to finish 5 or 6 books the next month. If I read more than that, that's great, but I only hope to finish that much because I don't really diligently follow TBRs. A lot of the times, the books that I read are not the ones that I plan to finish that month. I don't like write down TBRs and stuff. It's mostly like a mental vague note. But yeah. This time I'm going to be recording it. I'm going to be posting it to YouTube for the first time. So let's see. And thank you for watching. My teeth look really white. I hope it's not just the lighting. Bye.